Morning and good afternoon, everyone. It's been a while that we haven't, since the last time we did any of these webinars, but well, this time we're introducing a brand new product, and we're very excited to present you our latest range of products that are coming out that would get us into areas that we didn't have an easy time to get into before. So the product I'm going to introduce to you today is our brand new digital control solution, for short, DCS. So our digital control solution is a network solution that has, what usually is known in the market as a room controller. So our solution would be a sort of a bigger power pack, more intelligence, more number of relays and functions in it, and then communicating with multiple sensors and photocells and other and switches, all through a digital bus network instead of low voltage pulse. So this is how it's going to look, and at the bottom you can see the range of sensors that will be available to use with this product. So we'll go through these with more detail, but first I'll just start with giving you a brief introduction of all the stuff you see on when you get your hands on a DCS module. So the number one, and as you can see on, so the number 5, I have to start from number 5 because that's a 1/2-inch threaded nipple that lets you connect DCS module to a junction box, and then through that 1/2-inch threaded nipple you have your line voltage wiring, which is line and neutral and the wires for the 3 relays that come with our DCS. And then on the other side you have the low voltage department latching door. As you can see, number 3, we have 3 buttons there that if I quickly go back to the previous slide, you can see that these 3 buttons are kind of outside, just on top of the low voltage latch, low voltage door. So these 3 buttons will let you test the 3 relays that are in our DCS module without any programming or anything, just for testing purpose. Once you've completed the wiring, you just want to make sure that you have wired each zone or each set of fixtures to the relay that you want it to. Would be very handy before doing anything to just make sure your wiring is correct. And then number 4 would be the low voltage terminal. These are push-in terminals that you just have to, the single strand wire that you would be using, probably you just push it in and it just locks in, and no need for anything else, no patch cable, no RJ45 jacks, just a simple single strand wire. Number 6, or we have you can't see it here, but on the threaded nipple you have 2 lock nuts that helps you properly tighten the DCS module to the junction box. We have an LED light on the inside of the low voltage compartment that would turn on if the DCS is energized and powered on. There are talks to program it maybe in the future to use it as a sort of like troubleshooting LED, like depending on the number of pulses and frequency of it flashing, we can define some error codes for troubleshooting purposes. But at the moment, it just shows that the DCS is powered on or not. Number 8 is a small reset button. In case you program a DCS module, you forget the password, or you you don't know what the programming has been, but you just want to reprogram it from scratch. So this is you need like a pen or something. You just press and hold it for a few seconds, and it completely resets your DCS module. And number 9 is an RJ45 port that helps you connect our DCS module to BACnet over IP. So I'm kind of giving away a little bit of the features that I will be talking about more in detail later, which is our DCS can connect to BACnet over IP. And number 10 would be the low voltage wires that will be coming out on from the low voltage compartment. So now that you know approximately how the DCS module looks like and what kind of wires and stuff we have around it, I'll just go into the sample wiring diagram of it. So as you can see here, on the line voltage side, we have a black and white for line and neutral, and then 3 independent relays that can be 120 or 277 volts. So it's unlike some of our competitors that you can only use one circuit and then you get 3 zones or 4 zones. With our DCS, you can have 3 independent circuits for each, like one circuit per relay. So you don't have to use multiple DCS modules if you have multiple circuits in one area. This would be very handy. The first relay, actually, also the hot that you connect to the first relay energizes the DCS as well. So that's both the incoming for the first relay and also the power supply. And on the low voltage side, as you can see, we have 3 0 to 10 volt dimming channels that can be wired directly one-to-one to each relay, or you can reallocate them in the commissioning gap to other relays. So you can have, for example, relay 1 for the power and dimming zone 3 for your 0 to 10 volt dimming, depending on the application, or just in case someone made a mistake in wiring and you just don't want to redo the wiring, and you can fix that easily in the commissioning gap. The next one is our data line. So what we are using in our the connection, the bus connection we are using for our DCS is actually a 2-wire bus system that is polarity agnostic. So it doesn't matter. Here you can see that there is a plus and minus written on the data line, but even if you reverse those, the system will work just the same. So you don't have to worry about which color you have connected to the positive and which color you've connected to the negative. You just plug those bus line, data line wires in, and you can continue with your wiring. And as you can see, you can connect all the devices, your switches, your sensors, your Dolly 2 luminaires, your photo sensors, all in parallel to the same data line. We'll briefly touch on the number of devices you can have on each DCS module. So you know that what are the, how many sensors and switches you can connect to one DCS. The next terminal is a contact input for demand response. So this would be an interesting thing for those of you who work, who are from the West Coast and have to comply with Title 24 requirements. So a dry contact from a demand response system would be wired to our DCS, and then in the commissioning app you can program what to do when when DCS receives this this demand response signal. And the last terminal on the low voltage side is our time clock signal. That so our DCS has a built-in time clock, but it can also receive a volt-freak dry contact input from an external existing time clock, perhaps, to run some scenarios or do stuff that you do things that you've defined in the commissioning gap. So this is how the low voltage inputs look like. Again, the data line is polarity agnostic, so we don't really need to have the plus and minus sign there. But this is this same schematic would be inside the compartment door on the label, so you can easily know basically what you're doing when you're wiring this the low voltage compartment side. So let's get to the main features. I've already talked about some of them, but we can go into more details on on each one. So as you already know, our DCS module comes with the ability to control 3 independent circuits. So we have 3 relays. They are rated 20 amp, and they can be used for lighting or plug loads. There is going to be an expansion module later on that will help us, that you can use to add more relays to the DCS through the data line. The next feature that we have on our DCS is current monitoring per relay. So again, some of our competitors have current monitoring for the whole room controller that they have. For us, current monitoring is per relay. The default is 120 volts. So, or the default would be set based on the power supply or relay, the input to the relay 1. So if, for example, you have 120 volts on relay 1, but relay 2 and 3 are on connected to 277 volts, you can just easily go to the commissioning gap and basically tell the system that calculate current monitoring or consumption based on 277 volt input. The system has, the DCS offers 3 0 to 10 volt dimming channels. As you saw before, again, they can be used directly in a one-to-one connection with the relays, or they can be reassigned based on the requirement, or if there has been a mistake in the wiring, and that can be easily resolved with a couple of taps on your smartphone or your tablet instead of rewiring the system. The data line is a 2-wire polarity insensitive bus that can be used to network all of our sensors, switches, photo cells, gateways that may come in the future, and directly control Dolly 2 fixtures. So to the topic that I mentioned in the previous slide about the number of sensors and switches you can connect to each DCS. So here's the answer. You can have up to 100 devices connected to DCS, but then a device is defined as a device with a consumption of 2 milliamps, but not all devices consume 2 milliamps. Most of sensors, especially dual tech sensors or our IR Quattro HD sensors, consume more than 2 milliamps. So we probably will come up with a table or like an Excel sheet that auto-calculates these things, and we will distribute it to you, that you just put in your number of sensors and switches and type of sensors and switches you have, or you're planning to connect to one DCS, and then it will tell you if one DCS module is enough for your application, or you may need more. So our DCS is capable of daylight harvesting. We can have an open loop or closed loop multi-zone control. So this will help you cover all the latest energy codes like IECC 2018 and Title 24 to the highest degree with our photocells and the capabilities that are defined inside the DCS. Each dimming channel can be set to partial on or partial off in combination with the occupancy sensors or with the time clock, however you wish to define it. So again, this will help, like you need partial on in most office areas or classrooms. And then in the hallways, you want to use the partial off to make sure there is at least 20 or 30% of light when there is no occupancy, and then once people come back, the lights turn back to whatever percentage you set them. As I mentioned, each of our relays are 20 ampere rated, so they are capable of 20 amp receptacle control. Again, either based on occupancy or based on the internal timer or the external timer. The next feature is one of the coolest features that we have, which if you're familiar with our previous generation smart remote, this is a more advanced version of the same thing. In a smart remote, they are called profiles, and with our DCS, we're calling them use cases. So as you probably have guessed by now from what I've been talking about, the commissioning of our DCS is through an app that you can get on your smartphone or on your tablet, iOS, at the moment, Android, and soon iOS as well. So to make things easy for you, we will be creating some typical use cases, and then you can do this yourself as well. That let's say you have a school with 20, 30 classrooms, you go and set the use case, like prepare a profile of what this classroom needs to be doing and all the functions and features that you want to use in that classroom. You do your testing and commissioning, everything is set. You save it as a use case, you go to the next classroom and just you hit download. Easy as that. Or if it's a case that we have already prepared the use case, we either will email it to you, you can get it from our website, you just load it into your commissioning app, and you just maybe make some small modifications and you just hit send. You don't have to, so your commissioning comes down to basically how many typicals you have. Let's say you have a bunch of offices that have all same requirements, a bunch of classrooms that have the same requirements. You just need to test and commission program one, and the rest would be just hitting send, and they all get programmed. As you saw on the terminal block, we have an input for demand response. So the input terminal receives a dry contact closure from the demand response system, and then translates that to the way that you have defined during commissioning of what DCS should do once it receives a dry contact input for the demand response. And what I forgot to mention, or we will discuss more on the next slide, is that our DCS modules come built in with a Bluetooth chip that is used for both commissioning and also to create a mesh network that lets the DCS modules communicate with each other. So you don't have to run demand response input to each and every DCS unit. You just have to create a mesh, take the wire to the first DCS module, and then basically program the whole network to work off of that first input and go to the scenario that you have programmed for demand response requirement. Same story for external time clock, that you can have an external time clock through a dry contact closure and then define what you want to do. Again, same story, it can be programmed through the mesh network, that from that external time clock, all the DCS modules run a certain scenario. But then again, we have our own internal time clock that has time of day, day of week, calendar settings, holiday scheduling, and astronomical time function. So dusk and dawn. And instead of you trying to figure out what are the GPS coordinates of the device that you, or of the location, and then with a lot of headache putting those coordinates into the system for your time clock to run, you just have the tablet or the smartphone that you're using. You just have to enable the GPS on it, and our app will read the GPS coordinates of that location from your phone or your tablet, and puts it into the time clock, and you can run dusk and dawn programming directly in the commissioning app. You don't have to figure out what your longitude and latitudes are when you're commissioning. For each channel, you can set maximum and minimum dimming levels for each of the 0 to 10 volt dimming channels. This is very straightforward. Again, depends on the requirements or the conditions. Different light scenes can be programmed into the system, and these light scenes can be activated either through your manual switch, your internal or external time clock, demand response input, or occupancy sensor. So let's say hallways, after a certain time, you can set them to go to a certain scene that they go to, let's say, partial off. Or a meeting room's occupancy sensor will trigger a certain light scene upon entry to that room. So these are more in the programming part of DCS that unfortunately we won't go into details of it, because it's going to be very tedious to do that over a webinar, which is meant for product introduction. The next feature, which we kind of talked about, is the BLE, Bluetooth Low Energy. So each of our controllers comes with a BLE chip inside. This chip lets us program our sensors, our DCS modules wirelessly. Then it creates a Bluetooth. It can help, you can select to have a Bluetooth mesh for interconnectivity between DCS modules. So this way you can have mass updates, again, transferring the demand response input or external time clock input from one device to all the network. You can do current monitoring per relay on a tablet or a smartphone. And you can have the system expansion. So when you add more controllers and more sensors, you just define and you add those devices to the mesh network, and they will just start working together.
Again, I have a question from the chat window. What are the design best practices for the DCS BLE mesh?
I'm not sure what they mean by this. I know the range between the two DCS units can't be more than 60 feet. But then again, that's kind of a difficult question to answer, because depending on the environment and what is the material used, this can be very different.
Nathan,
I think that's something we have.
I just unmuted Nathan. Did you have a
Sure.
clarification on the question? You can pop in. Whoa, there's something weird happening, Nathan. Yeah, it's coming through kind of funky. But if you type the clarification in, I can read it aloud. Oh, 60 feet, then how many hops for you?
I don't believe we have defined any maximum number yet, or at least not that I know of, but we can get you that answer later on. Sorry, I didn't see the chat window. Okay, I'm going to continue. Again, Nathan, reach out to us later, especially with Thurston, and we'll go more into details of our BLE network design once we get into more of the, what do you call it, the best practices in design and everything. Yeah. So back to where we were. I briefly touched on this when I was introducing the ports and the physical aspects of our DCS controller. So I told you that we have an RJ45 port for communication with BACnet, a BACnet network. So you can use you can connect our DCS modules through an Ethernet cable to a BACnet over IP network, and then do the integration. Those data points, then the level of control is again something that we have to kind of go over on a case-by-case basis and based on the requirements of the project. Right now, I don't have much details to go over because I'm not much of a BACnet over IP expert anyway. Okay. So the good news is about the sensor. I'm sure, or pretty sure, that most of you are familiar with our Control Pro series, as you can see on the leftmost column. So there is going to be new versions of almost all of our Control Pro series except the corner mount unit, redone for the DCS with a 2-wire bus system. So you can't use our old sensors with DCS, but you have to order the DCS version of the same sensors. So everything on the front side, it looks the same. The coverage, performance, everything is the same. Now, thanks to DCS, you're going to get a lot more features out of them, which is awesome. And if some of you may know and have used or not be really familiar with our IS series. So our IS series are also getting revamped. They're also going to be able to connect to DCS. And we are introducing two, and they're going to have a couple of more added features. So our previous IS series were not wet location rated. Our new redesigned IS series are going to be wet location rated for outdoor or parking applications. We are introducing two new IS series sensors called IS3360. Well, for now it's called MX-DCS, and IS345 MX-DCS, which probably will be renamed to HB for high bay. So now you would have the normal IS3360 DCS, which is for lower mounting height and up to like 12 feet or something. And then you would have our IS3360, let's call it HBDCS, or IS345 HBDCS for your high bay application. They would be the digital equals of HBS 300 and HBS 200, if you're familiar with those. So again, now you will have them with all the good features and capabilities that comes with our DCS controller. And we're introducing 3 new sensors and a photo cell. So these 3 sensors are quite small, very very aesthetically nice actually looking sensors called IR Quattro Micro DCS, IR Micro DCS, IR Quattro Slim X. Again, must be a typo. It's called XS DCS. And we have our photocell DCS. Since you are probably familiar with our Control Pro and our IS series, I will not go into details of those, but I'm gonna go a little bit in more detail about our new sensors and our photocell. So IR Micro, as the name suggests, it's a PIR sensor, 168 switching zones, very low profile. It gives you a square coverage pattern. You can commission it wirelessly through DCS, although it does not communicate to DCS wirelessly. It's wired to DCS. It's DCS and DALI 2 compatible. It has a presence detection of 13 by 13 feet and a tangential coverage of 19 by 19 feet. So it's very good for small cubicles or small office areas. And as you can see, it's got a very low profile, so it won't be very visible on the ceiling. The next one is IR Quattro Micro. Again, as the name suggests, it's a PIR sensor, 168. This one really has a very small profile, and as you can see, the lens area is just 15 by 15 millimeters. So about ½ an inch by ½ an inch. Again, provides you with a square coverage pattern and has the same number of switching zones and coverage area as IR Micro. And also it is IP65 rated. So I guess this can be used in the showers or maybe more humid areas, or the last one, which in my opinion, the best looking sensor I've ever seen, is our IR Quattro Slim XS. Gives you 408 switching zones, 6 millimeter low profile, flat lens, square coverage pattern, and gives you a 13 feet by 13 feet coverage. Anyone who has seen this, I don't know anyone who has seen this sensor and hasn't liked how nice and actually how nice it looks and how easily it blends into a white ceiling. And the last of our new product would be our photocell DCS. So our photocell is capable of detection from 3-foot candle to 6,000 foot candle. You can program it to work as open or closed loop, and there is a 0 to 10 volt linear version, but the one that you will be using with the DCS would have the DALI 2 output, and you can commission it wirelessly through DCS. Then again, it communicates to DCS through through a wired network, but you don't need to commission it independently. You can just commission your DCS, and the DCS would send the programming to all the sensors and photocell as well. So now that we have gone through the new product, oh, we have a bunch of new products as well for you, aside from the sensor. So now that we are capable of having scenes and dimming and switching and all of those in one device, we have come up with two new range of products in terms of wall switches. So we have the wall switches that you can see on the right as one example, and then to be still compatible with your existing momentary switches that you may still have, we have a switch coupler that you can see on the left. So the switch coupler directly connects to the data line. It has 4 momentary switch inputs that can be defined through different actions, scenes, on, off, dimming, whatever you want to define it as. And then the other switches, the glass switches, as you can see, they connect directly to the data line, and they can be programmed through the commissioning gap. So here are a couple of examples of what you will find in our new range of sensors, wall switches. So you can see you have a single zone dimming, single zone switching, 2 scene switch with 2 scene buttons, 2 switching or dimming zones, and 4 scenes plus an all on, all off button. Same thing, three zones or 6 scenes plus an all on, all off button. And there will be a multi-switch for dimming and scenes all together. This is the initial rendering, and it will have the places that you probably can see, the bottom right corner of the on-off switches. There will be LEDs or S1, S2, and S3. There will be in LED indicators to show you which ones are activated. So these are these will be the switches that we will be providing, or you can use any momentary switch that you want with the switch coupler. So here's an example of a school project that previously we could only do partially because of the requirements. But now, thanks to our new DCS solution, you can either do the whole school with our DCS solution, or do a little bit of mix and match, and the areas that you absolutely need a DCS, like the classroom with daylight harvesting zone and everything, and the scene switch requirements with a DCS, and like the restrooms and smaller areas with our previous generation analog sensors and power packs, as you can see. So wherever you see the purple stamps, those are the DCS areas, and wherever you see the blue and red stamps or cyan stamps, those are the kind of the previous generation switches, which are still will be available, and they can be used in the same project as with our DCS controllers, as long as certain requirements are not defined or specified for the project, like complete network monitoring and those things. So as you can see, this same school project that we discussed was specified with products from one of our competitors that we couldn't meet before. And now, as you can see, this is the bill of material of the layout that you just saw, that we can meet the same specification using a mixture of our DCS and COM1 and COM1 sensors and power pack. This is an example of a classroom, a typical classroom with a DCS. As you can see, you have the photo cell for the daylight harvesting zone. You have an IR Quattro HD. DCS, as we have again and again in previous webinars discussed, is our best solution and our most recommended sensors for a classroom. And then you have a DCS module and a scene switch with 4 scene buttons at the entrance. So this would be your bill of material, and it will cover all the requirements up to the latest code for that classroom. Then here's an example of a restaurant which you have different zones and different requirements. So as you can see, you can have different sequence of operations, and then all of those sequence of operations can be met for each zone using our DCS modules. And here you can have a better look of, for example, zone 4 and all the requirements there. And then as you can see, we have the sequence of operation, and you have astronomical on at dusk or off at a certain time, certain scenes that need to be activated, all of those things. Basically, all of those requirements can be met using our DCS solution. So that would be, to meet all those requirements, you have the backdoor switch, that you have like an indoor on-off button, outdoor on-off signage, and indoor and signage on-off button. Again, we will go into more detail of how to design DCS solutions based on application in the future webinars. So there will be more webinars in the future, starting from next month, about, again, how to design a school and how to meet the code, like either code specific or application specific about DCS. Here's a sample case that we have prepared. As you can see, it's very cool and nice. It's our regionals will be having one of these, and will come to your territories and go on calls with you using this. This is a live sample case, so it can be plugged in, commissioned, and reprogrammed every time. And we have a couple of sensors that are functioning on it, and the switch is also functioning on it to demonstrate how our solution works. And to help you with the design at this stage, we have already created all the CAD blocks and Bluebeam blocks and tool chest for DCS, for our DCS solution. They're already available. We can send it to you if you want, or if you want us to help you with the layout, feel free to reach out, and we will help you with the layout. We have already laid out multiple projects already and coded. They're already in the pipeline. And here's a better look of how they look and how they are different. So the blocks would be very similar to our older blocks, but we will be mentioning DCS under each of the sensors and switches, so you don't confuse them with our previous generation sensors. And also we will be using a different color. So again, that would help with the whole situation. One thing I forgot to tell you about, which is very important, we talked about the data bus, but I forgot to mention what kind of wire you can use for a data bus. To make wiring very easy for everyone, and also quite easily, the wire quite easily accessible, we recommend a 2-wire 18 gauge a cable. So I've seen it usually labeled in the electrical distributor shops as a thermostat cable. So single strand, 2-wire, 18-gauge cable. You don't need to crimp it. There is no jack. You just each of our sensors and switches and our DCS controller, they have a push-in terminal blocks. You just strip the wire, push them in, and since they are polarity insensitive, you don't even have to think which color or which one you plugged in into which terminal on the back of your sensor or your controller. It will just work seamlessly and very easy and straightforward. So this would definitely help everyone significantly, or the contractor significantly, when it comes to wiring. They don't have to run Cat5 cables around, and then the issues that come with crimping or paying for expensive ready-made patch cables. Forget about all of those. This is all I've got for now for you. Like I said, there will be, from next month, we will start our code or application-based webinars. So check your emails for those. There will be announcements from Casey or Jennifer to sign up for those with the time and date. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask now or reach out to us later.
Poria, there are a couple questions in the chat window, so you can probably see them, but I'll go ahead and read it. One is, are there plans to have the ability of designating certain wall switches as master switches? For example, corridors where a wall switch could tell multiple DCSs to turn on or off through BLE mesh.
I believe yes. I'm quite positive that yes, that can be done. So as I believe we saw on the, let me go back a couple of slides. On the, so as you can see here, the backdoor switch is turning on all of the indoor or outdoor or signage lights. So the answer is yes. So you have your zones, you just have to create the mesh network, and then you define one switch to control multiple DCS units or multiple relays on multiple DCS units.
Okay. And then there's another question. How would phase dimming be handled?
Unfortunately, we don't have a phase dimming solution. So our DCS only provides 0 to 10 volts dimming, but you can place a phase dimmer after the output relay of our DCS module and dim your fixtures using that phase dimmer after our DCS module. But no, there are no plans to make even a DCS unit with a phase dimming function.
Okay, I'll just read the next. The next question is, can you talk a little bit more about how dimming works on the switches?
So let me go back to a slide that shows our switches, and I'll explain it here. So DS1 DCS would be our dimming switch. So you have the on-off button at the bottom, and then you have the slider that you can tap on it at a certain point and it jumps to that level, or you can slide your finger up and down on the middle part to dim up and down. I believe you can define in the app whether you can have dim on and dim off, meaning if the lights are off, you can just dim up and they turn on and start dimming, and also dim off. But I'm not exactly sure right now about that.
Okay, and then the last question that we have in the chat is, will UL 924 be addressed?
UL 924, I mean, we will not be having a UL 924 DCS module, but the same the EPC switches that UL 924 modules that we currently sell can be used with our DCS as well. So there won't be any UL 924 built-in functionality or additional Steinel version of it available, but the current solution that we are already offering can be used in conjunction with our DCS module as well.
Okay, and then there's another question. Will you have various colors on the stations, black, white, and ivory?
That's a good question. As far as I know, or at least at the moment, no. That's something we can discuss with Thurston Selby, our product manager. But these are glass switches, so I don't know if it would be easy to get them in different colors, or they will all just be single color. Again, anything is possible with the right quantity. I'm sure they have a minimum order for making the glasses in different colors, but we have to see the demand. If it's going to be in high volume requirements, most probably, sure. But right now, it will be only available in one color.
So with that, we can go ahead and conclude this webinar. Thanks so much for attending. We'll send you a link with this webinar just in case anyone else in your office wants to see it. You'll be able to share that. So that'll go straight out to anyone who registered. All right. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thanks everyone. Have a great day. Bye.